Case study for John, Natal to Navamsha Nakshatra Pada analysis. Ascendant and first house Gemini. Ascendant Nakshatra and Pada, Ardra Nakshatra, third Pada Navamsha placement, Aquarius, first house. Natal chart expression, outer self. With Gemini rising and the ascendant falling in Ardra Nakshatra's third Pada, John presents himself to the world as mentally sharp, restless, and intense in his curiosity. Ardra, ruled by Rahu, brings a tendency toward disruption, deconstruction, and intellectual intensity. This is not the light, social Gemini. It is the one that seeks to unravel, challenge, and analyze through chaos. The third Pada of Ardra lies in Libra Navamsha, which blends Rahu's chaotic curiosity with Venus's need for harmony and relational validation. Externally, John appears rebellious, sharp, and mentally provocative, but his instinct is to seek approval through intelligent performance, especially in social or intellectual environments. There's a performative streak to his deconstruction. He doesn't just want to understand, he wants to be acknowledged for it. This Nakshatra Pada suggests past life karma related to misuse of intellect or communication for manipulation, charm, or avoidance of accountability. He may struggle with emotional impulsiveness masked as logic, or use neutrality as a shield when morally challenged. The personality has a penetrating mind, but may also fall into moral relativism if not consciously refined. Tap Navamsha chart expression, inner self. Internally, John has Aquarius rising in the Navamsha, indicating that while he may appear changeable and intense externally, his soul's path is grounded in innovation, social reform, and karmic neutrality. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Rahu, reinforcing the cool, detached, and long-vision nature of his inner identity. This shift from Gemini to Aquarius signals a move from dual curiosity to fixed purpose. While Gemini asks questions, Aquarius builds frameworks. John's internal self seeks to contribute to collective evolution, not for fame, but for structural reform. His true fulfillment comes from long-term ideological work, not quick answers or social mirroring. This ascendant transition also suggests that John is more emotionally detached inwardly than he appears, finds peace through service to abstract ideals, not personal validation, internally seeks predictable logic and community structures, even if his outer world remains dynamic or unstable. Psychological implication of the natal Navamsha shift, from Gemini to Aquarius, Mercury to Saturn Rahu, a maturation from scattered thinking to systems thinking. Outer Ardra intensity meets inner Aquarius clarity. The emotional turbulence and sharp analysis of Ardra is softened and directed inward by Aquarius's cool fixity. Karmic challenge, to align outer curiosity with inner purpose, and to ground questioning into principles rather than perpetual ambiguity or critique. Ardra, Pada 3 themes in life orientation. This Pada often causes disruption due to passive-aggressive communication, sharp sarcasm, or emotional outbursts cloaked in intellect. There's karmic residue around imbalanced mental diplomacy, saying what is needed to be liked or not saying what needs to be said. The outer self may project neutrality but trigger reactions, while the inner self seeks objective impact through ideals. Summary of first house synthesis. John's chart reveals a contrast between chaotic inquiry and visionary structure. Outwardly, he deconstructs systems, breaks emotional norms, and challenges ideas with sharp wit and a skeptical edge. Inwardly, however, his soul is committed to collective evolution, futuristic order, and ethical distance. His journey is to integrate his sharp intelligence and reformist instinct to evolve from a questioner to a quiet architect of systemic change. Healing begins when he no longer needs approval to question or rebellion to innovate. Case study for John, Natal to Navamsha Nakshatra Pada analysis, moon placement. Moon and emotional self natal placement, first house, Gemini Nakshatra and Pada, Ardra Nakshatra, second Pada Navamsha placement, Capricorn 12th house. Natal chart expression, outer emotional self. With the moon and Gemini in the first house, John's emotions are highly visible, reactive, and expressed through speech, curiosity, and mental analysis. His identity and emotional state are entangled. His moods change quickly, often shaped by his environment and the conversations he's engaged in. This gives him emotional adaptability, but also emotional restlessness. In Ardra Nakshatra, the moon becomes more volatile and stormy. Ardra is ruled by Rahu and symbolized by the teardrop. Emotion here is not soft or romantic, but intense, searching, and disruptive. The second pada, which falls in Virgo Navamsha, introduces themes of critical self-analysis, emotional suppression, and a tendency to intellectualize feelings. This combination suggests that John's outward emotional persona is overthinking and hyperverbal. He tries to manage emotions by breaking them down logically, prone to guilt and self-doubt, especially when emotions don't align with his rational image. Carrying karmic patterns related to verbal hurt or judgment, either being the one wounded or the one who uses words as defense. There's often emotional rigidity disguised as mental agility. He may appear emotionally expressive, but his vulnerability is heavily filtered through intellect and sarcasm. Navamsha chart expression, inner emotional self. In the Navamsha, the moon moves to Capricorn in the 12th house, showing that John's inner emotional world is controlled, isolated, and marked by detachment and karmic fatigue. While he may externally seem talkative or even scattered, internally he is emotionally guarded, even reclusive. Capricorn brings structure and repression to the moon. It tries to contain emotion through responsibility, order, or emotional withdrawal. In the 12th house, this becomes even more stark. Emotional patterns are tied to past life grief, solitude, and renunciation. He may fear emotional vulnerability and choose isolation or escapism when overwhelmed. Sleep, dreams, and creative solitude become vital for emotional processing, but also sources of subconscious stress. This placement also hints at silent suffering. John may feel that emotional support is unavailable or undeserved. The soul's emotional journey involves enduring loneliness, detachment from nurturance, or separation from maternal archetypes. Integration, outer restlessness versus inner confinement. Outward moon, Gemini Ardra second pada, emotionally expressive, witty, sharp, but easily destabilized by change. Projects mental control to mask emotional chaos. Inward moon, Capricorn 12th house, emotionally disciplined, withdrawn, and karmically exhausted. Needs structured solitude and space to reset. Core conflict, the outer need to express versus the inner fear of emotional exposure. Karmic signature of Ardra second pada, emotional detachment rooted in overjudgment, emotional rationalization, or guilt over past emotional failures. Healing begins when the intellect stops silencing the emotional truth. Summary of moon synthesis. John's moon reveals a deeply conflicted emotional pattern. Outwardly, he appears clever, fast-moving, and even humorous in emotional situations. But this hides an internal rigidity and spiritual isolation. His soul is learning to reclaim emotional authenticity, not through performance or productivity, but through quiet surrender, structured healing, and inner forgiveness. The journey from Gemini Ardra to Capricorn 12th is the path from emotional reaction to emotional wisdom, from storm to stillness. Case study for John, Natal to Navamsha Nakshatra Pada analysis. Second house, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Cancer, Pushya and Ashlesha Nakshatra Padas. Mars, second house Cancer, Pushya Nakshatra, first pada, Navamsha Leo 7th house expression, outer self, Mars in second house. Mars in Cancer is in its sign of debilitation, and in the second house of speech, values, food, and family lineage, it often manifests as emotional aggression or deep defensiveness tied to early conditioning and self-worth. With Mars in Pushya Nakshatra's first pada, the outward Mars becomes karmically linked to control over nourishment, power through protection, and authority over one's own voice or family domain. The first pada falls in Aries Navamsha, giving Mars back some fiery control. So even if Mars is debilitated by sign, the pada restores initiative and pride. This creates a person who defends their values fiercely, even irrationally, may use sharp or dominating language to protect emotional boundaries, feels a need to prove their strength through control of family, resources, or speech. The karmic wound here relates to past misuse of authority over resources or mismanagement of nurturing roles, and a need in this life to reclaim those principles through inner balance, not outer dominance. Navamsha expression. Leo, in 7th house internally, Mars lands in Leo in the 7th house, suggesting that John's deeper karmic drive is to assert identity through relationships, but also to heal patterns of pride, power imbalance, and emotional combat in partnerships. The soul seeks recognition from others, especially through emotional labor, but may often feel unseen or resisted unless ego is humbled and real emotional vulnerability is shown. Venus, second house Cancer, Pushya Nakshatra, third Pada, Navamsha Libra, ninth house. Natal chart expression, outer self, Venus in second house. Venus in Cancer in the second house bestows a soft, comforting, and emotionally nurturing aesthetic. John may value emotional safety, familial bonds, and artistic expression that soothes or stabilizes. In Pushya's third Pada, which corresponds to Gemini Navamsha, Venus becomes more expressive, talkative, and emotionally flirtatious, though often masking deep emotional vulnerability. This suggests a refined communicator who uses emotional sensitivity for charm. Strong attachment to family approval, food rituals, and emotionally colored memories. Karmic tendencies to avoid emotional confrontation by appeasing or people-pleasing, especially in domestic or financial matters. Navamsha expression, Libra ninth house. In Navamsha, Venus moves to Libra in the ninth house, her own sign, and in the house of higher values, teachers, and Dharma. Internally, John is guided by harmonious philosophy, aesthetic justice, and a desire for love that uplifts rather than entraps. His soul finds beauty in wisdom and balance, and is likely pulled toward spiritual partnerships, refined education, or cultural elegance. Mercury, second house Cancer, Ashlesha Nakshatra, third Pada, Navamsha Aquarius, first house. Natal chart expression, outer self, Mercury in second house. Mercury in Cancer creates a sentimentally intelligent communicator, someone whose language is shaped by emotional memory. In Ashlesha Nakshatra, Mercury takes on a serpentine, penetrating, and often calculating nature. The third Pada, Libra Navamsha, reveals a speaker who is strategic, charming, but emotionally guarded, with karmic themes around, withholding truth to maintain image, over-intellectualizing emotional pain, using speech as manipulation or emotional defense in early family or resource-based relationships. Navamsha expression, Aquarius, first house. In the Navamsha, Mercury shifts to Aquarius in the first house, showing that John's inner identity is shaped by detached reasoning, innovation, and intellectual independence. While outwardly he may speak softly or emotionally, inwardly his speech serves a higher collective vision, and his soul craves truth and logic, not sentiment. This reinforces his true self as a thinker, not a feeler, and his healing comes from uniting the two. Integration, second house Karma, speech, value, family memory. Mars, Pushya first Pada, outer, defends emotional territory with force. Family loyalty turns aggressive under threat. Inner, seeks relational recognition, Leo Navamsha, but must temper ego to avoid projection. Venus, outer, soothing, pleasing, romanticized communicator of values. Inner, drawn to beauty and truth, spiritual love, and philosophical devotion, Libra Navamsha. Mercury, Ashlesha third Pada, outer, emotionally manipulative or guarded communicator, intelligent but defensive. Inner, logical, humanitarian identity, values truth, objectivity, and reform, Aquarius Navamsha. Summary of second house synthesis. John's second house reflects a karmic entanglement around voice, nourishment, family loyalty, and emotional ownership. The presence of Mars, Venus, and Mercury in Cancer, across Pushya and Ashlesha, suggests a childhood or early life where emotional security was weaponized, romanticized, or intellectualized, creating a fragmented self-worth structure. Each planet's Navamsha reveals the true healing path. Mars must lead with emotional dignity, not control. Venus must pursue values rooted in higher beauty, not codependence. Mercury must unify emotional intelligence with collective vision. His evolution in this life hinges on transforming speech from a defensive tool to a conscious vehicle of value and purpose. Case study for John, Natal to Navamsha Nakshatra Pada analysis, third house, Sun and Rahu in Leo, Magha Nakshatra, first and third Padas. Sun, third house Leo, Magha Nakshatra, first Pada, Navamsha Aries, third house. Natal expression, outer self, Sun in third house. The Sun in Leo in the third house is in its own sign, creating a bold, expressive, and authoritative communication style. The third house governs speech, courage, initiative, siblings, and skill building, and the Sun here gives John a powerful sense of voice, pride, and self-leadership. In Magha Nakshatra, the Sun expresses ancestral karma, legacy, and loyalty to one's lineage. The first Pada, Leo Navamsha, further enhances solar strength, bringing out traits of honor, pride, dignity, and a desire to command respect through expression. This suggests a confident, often commanding communicator, deep reverence for tradition, elders, or ancestral pride, especially in the paternal line. Strong opinions and need for validation through being seen as the leader among peers or siblings. However, this also introduces karmic rigidity. There may be challenges with overdominance in group communication, silencing others' voices, conflicts with siblings due to ego assertion or perceived authority, expecting respect without earning emotional closeness. Navamsha expression, Aries, third house. The sun lands in Aries in the third house Navamsha, keeping it in the same house but now adding Martian drive. Internally, John seeks to assert intellectual and creative independence and may feel karmically pushed to fight for his right to speak, write, or perform. This internal sun is brave and ambitious, but emotionally reactive when unacknowledged. Oriented toward personal missions and fearless skill development, learning to align personal courage with respect for others' voices, not just one's own authority. Rahu, third house, Leo, Magha Nakshatra, third Pada, Navamsha Gemini Natal Chart expression, outer self, Rahu in third house. Rahu in Leo in the third house brings an intense desire for social status, self-expression, and influence through media, speech, or skills. Rahu expands whatever it touches, so here it magnifies. Desire to be heard, sometimes obsessively. Risk-taking in communication, especially in image building, performance, or public reputation. Restless push for skill mastery, especially where visibility and applause are involved. In Magha Nakshatra, Rahu inherits themes of legacy, entitlement, and personal throne building. The third Pada, corresponding to Sagittarius Navamsha, emphasizes a need for philosophical justification and often a sense of karmic self-importance, where the native feels destined to say or do something great but may skip necessary emotional grounding. Karmic risks here include being overly theatrical or self-centered in communication, using ancestral pride as an ego mask, creating distance from peers or siblings through unacknowledged arrogance. Navamsha expression, Gemini, fifth house. In Navamsha, Rahu moves to Gemini in the fifth house, showing that the inner emotional self is fueled by intellectual creativity, mental stimulation, and performance-based validation. Internally, John may feel compulsively drawn to romantic, intellectual, or speculative expression, crave admiration for his intelligence or charm, especially in love or public platforms, struggle with immature expression or attention-seeking when unbalanced. This also reveals karmic tendencies toward over-romanticizing communication, using charm or intellect to distract from emotional discomfort or ethical scrutiny. Integration, self-expression, ego, and communication. Karma Sun, Magha First Pada Aries Vamsha. Outwardly confident, legacy-driven, communicative with royal tone. Inwardly action-oriented, proud, and reactive when voice is challenged. Karmic lesson, use voice for truth, not just self-assertion. Rahu, Magha Third Pada Geminamsha. Outwardly ambitious, dramatic, craving attention through speech or charisma. Inwardly playful, clever, and magnetized by intellectual romance or theatrical performance. Karmic lesson, align desire for brilliance with ethical clarity and humility. Summary of third house synthesis. John's third house holds the fire of expression and the shadow of entitlement. Both Sun and Rahu in Leo Magha suggest a soul that was used to being heard, obeyed, or praised in past lifetimes, but now must learn how to engage in communication that empowers rather than dominates. The Navamsha reinforces this. The Sun in Aries wants to lead but must learn to listen. Rahu in Gemini seeks expression but must learn maturity in tone. Ultimately, this placement matures when courage is fused with humility and when John uses his powerful voice not just for performance, but for purpose. Case study for John, natal to Navamsha Nakshatra, Pada analysis. Ninth house, Ketu in Aquarius, Shatabisha Nakshatra, first Pada Navamsha Sagittarius, 11th house. Natal chart expression, outer self, Ketu in ninth house. Ketu in the ninth house reflects detachment from institutional belief systems, formalized religion, or inherited spiritual doctrines. The ninth house governs dharma, higher knowledge, teachers, father figures, and long-distance learning. And Ketu here creates a karmic memory of already having walked the path of conventional wisdom, leading to disinterest or disillusionment in traditional structures. In Aquarius, Ketu becomes detached, clinical, and rebellious in philosophical matters. John may instinctively resist any belief that imposes moral superiority, tradition, or conformity. He may appear spiritual, but not in a linear or ritualistic way. Instead, he's drawn to abstract, futuristic, or alternative spiritual paths, often seeking meaning through disruption, reform, or mental solitude. Navamsha Nakshatra intensifies this. This is the 100 healers, symbolizing the power of isolation, secretive repair, and karmic dissolution. The first pada, which maps to Gemini Navamsha, adds an intellectual flavor. John detaches from belief through analysis and skepticism. He may question or dissect ideologies, breaking them into data rather than living them. There's a tendency to feel alone in belief, or to reject community-based spiritual identification. The karmic implication is that John already mastered the outer forms of belief in past lives, but now he must rediscover inner truth without rejecting the wisdom of others. Navamsha expression. Sagittarius, 11th house. In the Navamsha, Ketu moves to Sagittarius in the 11th house, indicating that the soul detaches from mass ideology, group expectations, or collective movements, even those it once helped to build. Internally, this placement suggests a karmic memory of being a visionary or preacher in a community, now leading to disinterest in following others. Disconnection from collective hopes or material goals, preferring private inquiry over mass recognition. A tendency to resist peer validation or collective belonging, even when beneficial. John may be internally skeptical of social utopias, philanthropic dogmas, or moral groupthink. He is meant to pursue truth outside the crowd, even if it isolates him, yet without falling into nihilism or superiority. Integration. Inner truth versus outer disengagement. Outer expression. Aquarius Shatabisha. Detached from tradition, prefers unconventional teachers or self-guided learning, may project intelligence as a substitute for faith. Inner expression. Sagittarius 11th house. Disillusioned with group belief systems, longs for cosmic truth, but avoids aligning with mainstream visions. Core conflict. The desire for individual truth collides with a soul memory of having led collectives and now feeling disenchanted with both. Karmic lesson. To find humble wisdom not by rejecting systems, but by choosing inner silence without intellectual arrogance. Healing begins when the need to oppose is replaced with the willingness to understand. Summary of 9th house synthesis. John's Ketu in the 9th shows a soul that has already lived the life of the guru, the scholar, or the priest, but in this life chooses detachment. Whether from inherited religion, parental belief systems, or educational structures, John feels spiritually alone, not due to ignorance, but due to karmic fatigue with external answers. With Navamsha Ketu in Sagittarius 11th, the soul questions the validity of community wisdom and must now learn to walk alone without bitterness, contribute without preaching, and believe without belonging. His dharma is quiet, his wisdom hidden, and his spiritual liberation lies in the freedom to be unattached, yet not disconnected. Case study for John, Natal to Navamsha Nakshatra Pada analysis. 10th house, Jupiter in Pisces, Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, 4th Pada, Navamsha Cancer, 6th house. Natal chart expression, outer self, Jupiter in 10th house. Jupiter in the 10th house of career, social image, and authority reflects a person who outwardly projects wisdom, moral stature, and a strong philosophical compass in public life. In Pisces, Jupiter is in its own sign, giving John a naturally visionary and spiritual quality to his ambitions. He's likely seen as an idealist, guide, or counselor in professional settings. However, being placed in Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, this Jupiter is not lighthearted. It is deeply committed, intense, and often radical. Purva Bhadrapada deals with sacrifice, transformation, and mystical idealism, and the 4th Pada, which falls in Cancer Navamsha, adds emotional density. John's outer persona shows a public role shaped by ethical intensity or moral sacrifice. Leadership that may carry emotional burdens or demand personal compromise. A tendency to attract roles where he must act as a stabilizer during collective uncertainty, often absorbing the emotional stress of teams, communities, or institutions. There may be past life themes around misuse of spiritual or moral power in public life, leading to a current life push to lead with sincerity, protect the vulnerable, and uphold principles over profit. Navamsha Express Answer, 6th house. In the Navamsha, Jupiter lands in Cancer in the 6th house, where it is exalted. This shows that John's soul thrives through humble service, emotional intelligence in daily duties, and ethical responses to conflict. Internally, he is drawn to work that nurtures, heals, or resolves suffering. His inner world believes that real purpose is found in helping others solve problems, not just leading them. Despite the outer image of philosophical grandeur, his soul learns best through routine service, emotional labor, and spiritual discipline. The 6th house Navamsha also reveals karmic challenges related to overfunctioning or overgiving in service roles, leading to emotional fatigue. Need to balance justice and compassion, to know when to help and when to say no. Learning that not all battles must be fought from the pulpit, some are won in the trenches of daily duty. Ash integration. Outer ideals versus inner service. Outward Jupiter, Pisces, Purva Bhadrapada 4th Pada, appears wise, spiritually inclined, and ethically commanding, likely involved in meaningful, if emotionally intense, public work. Inward Jupiter, Cancer, 6th house Navamsha, soft, service-oriented, emotional caretaker, internally believes in serving quietly, not just leading visibly. Core conflict. Outer projection of purpose is idealistic and transformative. Inner requirement is emotional service and karmic debt clearing. Karmic lesson. To learn that public purpose must be rooted in personal integrity and emotional sustainability. Leadership is not about escape from duty, but fulfilling it with empathy. Summary of 10th house synthesis. Jupiter in the 10th house in Pisces gives John a high calling, but one that comes with emotional cost and spiritual responsibility. His outer path may be that of the philosopher, advisor, or reformer, but his inner self is a healer, caretaker, and restorer of balance. The shift from Purva Bhadrapada's intense moral vision to Cancer's nurturing discipline shows a life path that must integrate cosmic ideals with everyday compassion. His greatest impact arises not just through what he believes, but through how he serves with consistency and care. Case study for John, Natal to Navamsha Nakshatra Pada analysis. 11th house, Saturn in Aries, Ashwini Nakshatra, 3rd Pada, Navamsha Gemini. 5th house, Natal Chart expression, outer self, Saturn in 11th house. The 11th house governs gains, long-term aspirations, social circles, alliances, and elder siblings. With Saturn in Aries, John's ability to attain his ambitions is marked by delays, frustrations, and disciplined effort, especially due to Saturn being debilitated in Aries. In this sign, Saturn struggles to slow down Mars-like impulsiveness, so the native often learns ambition through trial and correction. In Ashwini Nakshatra, Saturn attempts to embody the quick, instinctive healing energy of the Ashwini Kumaras. The 3rd Pada, which falls in Gemini Navamsha, gives a more intellectualized and adaptable tone to Saturn's otherwise rigid character. However, the placement also implies a karmic backlog where John attempted to force success or status too quickly in past lives, possibly by bypassing process. Difficulty trusting alliances, group dynamics, or peer support, leading to emotional isolation or social detachment. A tendency to feel burdened by responsibility toward friends, teams, or institutions, especially when personal validation is lacking. This Saturn wants long-term success, but is often faced with erratic peer environments or inconsistent group leadership, forcing John to learn patience and resilience through setbacks in recognition or gains. Navamsha expression. Gemini, 5th house. In the Navamsha, Saturn moves to Gemini in the 5th house, showing that the soul's deeper challenge lies in responsible expression, creative self-confidence, and karmic healing through disciplined intellect. This placement reveals an inner child who may have been discouraged from self-expression, leading to overcorrection or fear of being seen. A soul tasked with repairing karmic patterns around children, romantic entanglements, or intellectual arrogance. Emotional reluctance to fully engage in joy, love, or risk, unless it can be justified logically or ethically. The 5th house Navamsha Saturn also points toward delayed recognition in intellectual or creative fields, and romantic patterns involving emotional withholding or one-sided commitment. Integration. Long-term aspirations versus creative self-worth. Outward Saturn, Aries Ashwini 3rd Pada, socially ambitious but slow to trust groups or peers. Learning not to rush the process of gain, feels karmically tested in aligning quick ambition with lasting rewards. Inward Saturn, Gemini 5th house, deep self-monitoring around creativity, romance, and emotional expression. Learns to combine logic and discipline to heal inner fears of being inadequate or misunderstood. Core conflict. Strives for success and contribution outwardly, but internally feels blocked from authentic expression or joy, fearing it won't be good enough or sustainable. Karmic lesson. Must slow down, trust process, and allow self-worth to grow through earned wisdom, not comparison or external applause. Summary of 11th house synthesis. John's Saturn in the 11th house reveals delayed or hard-earned success in social standing, career goals, and collaborative influence. Saturn in Ashwini Nakshatra's Gemini Pada indicates a karmic pattern of rushed success, incomplete loyalty, or immature group karma in past lives. The Navamsha shows the emotional cost, an inner self that fears joy, judges self-expression, and craves intellectual validation. His soul evolution involves learning that true gains arise not just from strategy or suppression, but from integrating patience, play, and authentic contribution. In this life, John is meant to rise slowly but steadily, by stabilizing his inner voice and trusting that real recognition is earned through balance, not urgency.